or no? Just let me know. Just take your time. Y'all nigga, my niggas stay on your grind.
It's the Bella Networking Show, and I'm your host, Bella Networking Guru. It's Monday morning, which means #Monday Motivation. Thank you for joining me again for another episode of the Bella Networking TV. Today is actually in celebration of International Women's Day, which is going to be held on Friday the 8th. And we have a really great topic today, helping women get on the board and be a director that they wish they want to be. Guys, if you're enjoying this topic and you have some comments or questions, please hit the comments box below. And if you're enjoying the show, please hit the likes. And if you're following through YouTube, please subscribe and you will get notifications of the other interviews which I host every Monday morning. So without further ado, Jo, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, hi, I'm Joella Bruckshaw. I'm an executive coach and board facilitator.
Jo, I'm so happy to have you on my show because you're near and dear to me, and we've known each other now for how long?
Well, it's in the years, category.
Yeah, like probably 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and we've been working together maybe 2 years. So wonderful. So I really wanted to get your executive coach skills today to share tips, but I think also it helps men as well as women how to be a board director. Absolutely. So as an executive coach, what do you do? What's your services as an executive coach?
Well, I work with people who want to make a transition and haven't done it yet.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And when did you start your business?
2003.
Fantastic. And when you're helping, say, particularly women get on the board or get a seat on the board, what is their target audience? What type of characteristics do they normally have?
Well, they're women who want recognition and reward, and they want to be in a position to make executive decisions, like grown-up decisions.
Sure. And do they tend to be career focused, already business? What sort of job role would they have, or what level, or what senior type role would they have?
I think probably where I would be connecting with them would be perhaps they're trying to get a NED role, perhaps they want to get onto a board, or they might want to make an impact on a board.
Got you. Now, I think we need to clarify, so everybody and maybe around the world, can you just define what is a board? Why is it important for business or a company?
Okay, well, a board is very important because it consists of all of the heads of function in an organisation, however large. You know, you'll always have someone who's responsible for finance, someone who's responsible for operations. There may be, well, there will be an HR director, well, not always, there usually is. And then there might be specialists, a lawyer might be on the board. Okay,
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it doesn't necessarily just have to be directors around the seats, it could be the heads of departments as well.
Some people may have an advisory role.
Oh, okay, great.
Or they might be a lawyer and a director.
Okay, great. So that's really nice to clarify. So if somebody's seeking to be on the board, they may not be seeking for a seat as a director. It could be, as you said, an advisor, a head of department.
If they're an advisor, they'll probably be invited to come in. Usually, if people want to be on the board, they're looking for some kind of director role.
Got you. Okay. So if you could describe your services, how would you help your client get from A to B to get on the board? What would you do?
There are certain elements of it. I mean, there's the ubiquitous CV, and I'd help them do that. And I'd also work with them in terms of presenting themselves and having an impact. So I think it's critically important to be able to say who you are, what your contribution is, where you're going, and engage the people that you're talking to. I mean, that's critically important. And I think preparing them for the kinds of conversations that they have. And of course, we're talking about International Women's Day, and I think boards tend to be male-dominated, and therefore women need a way of bypassing maybe their anxiety, their lack of confidence, and having them come across well. And that's why I always work out with people who they are.
Sure.
And enable them to actually talk about that confidently.
Yes.
And in a way that gets them taken seriously.
Sure. And when you work with a client, do you have a minimum or maximum period to achieve that?
My minimum period of working with people, typically it's 6 months to a year.
Got you.
But it depends what they're working on.
Sure.
I mean, it may be that if it's just about, look, I want to work out who I am and I want to be able to message that to a given audience, well, I can do that in a couple of sessions.
Excellent. Guys, if you've just tuned in, you are watching Monday morning's edition of the Bella Networking TV show. I'm here every Monday. I'm Bella Networking Guru. And guys, today's topic is all about how do you get that seat on the board. And please tune in and watch the show to the end, because Jo's going to give an example actually how she helped a client, and she's going to be giving some tips that you can actually use to try and get that seat on the board. So I wanted to just find out the obvious question. Why is it then, traditionally, there are fewer women on the board?
Right, well, my take on it is that it's basically cultural. Men are trained to be out there, dealing, and often they get trained at school doing more team games like football, rugby. Women
so that
do
may
that
be the
less.
competitive side as well.
Well, I think what it enables them to do is that, like, if they don't get picked for the team, they don't get upset about it. You know, they used to.
Oh, wow.
They have
well, if they get picked last as well, they don't get upset,
well,
would you
no,
say?
it's like some weeks you get on, some weeks you don't. They become much more, they kind of have the corners rubbed off, whereas girls are much more hot-housed.
Okay.
You know, they're more sort of nurtured and looked after, and they're sort of holding all the sort of delicate, sensitive, bursting into tears type of qualities. And it isn't that women can't be that way. I mean, if women had more experience of the team games and the, you know, being coached, having, you know, getting results, they would be much more used to it. And I've actually, you know, you mentioned my book, and where I researched about what it is that holds women back. Some of the women who are successful, one woman, she at sixth form, she was sent to a school where there were very few girls and mostly boys, and she said she learnt more about how to deal with boys there than she'd ever learnt, and that was very, very useful to her in her career.
Wow. So you mentioned something that was quite important, definitely how men see things different and learnt behaviour, and about that picking process where guys may not be as emotionally betrayed about it, so to speak. So, for example, if there is a male and a female going for a board and a seat, and the man didn't get the role and the woman didn't get the role equally, that the both of them would look at it in a different way as well, would you think?
Well, yeah, I don't think you can generalise. Not all women. It's not like all women and all men. It's just that the social context within which they're operating suggests a certain way of behaving. So there's more likelihood that a woman will respond in a womanly sort of way, and a man will do the same. But it doesn't mean, and this is where I really do help women, it doesn't mean they can't learn to be pragmatic, to let things... I've met some extremely pragmatic women who do not let things get to them.
Right.
You know, it's all learnable.
Sure. And what makes your approach different? Why are your services a little bit different in helping women to overcome these challenges?
Think it's the combination of understanding what holds them back, and then helping them just let go. Look, forget your woman, let's work out who you are as a person. And I have a way of doing that, using images that helps them get their a sort of epithet about who they are, like things like walking on sunshine with attitude. You know, something that means something to them, and then translating that into a way of talking about themselves that's really, really powerful. And a real leader actually says, look, this is who I am, this is my contribution, this is where I'm going, are you coming with me?
Right.
That's what leaders say.
I like those direct approach, and I'd like to add to that for viewers that are watching that would want that experience on the board, be it an advisor, head, or that director. What are maybe a few things stopping them, and what advice, what maybe 2 tips you can give so that maybe they can change their mindset, or what's mainly stopping them wanting to get on board, and what 2 tips could you share?
I really think finding out who you are and being able to speak it to people is...
And when you say who you are, do you mean identify your own purpose, what you stand for?
I think, well, you know, I call it intuitive personal brand, which is what you know already to be true about you. And that may not be something you want to share, but it's actually what you believe is true. It's what like makes you giggle and smile and your eyes go shine. You know, it's what passion is about.
So how is that important to translate that? Is it bringing more power for yourself or confidence?
I think that when you can describe accurately for yourself who you know yourself to be, then your eyes shine. And so you start to come across well. And then if you translate that raw energy into something that your audience will understand, so you're thinking about what's their context, what keeps them up at night, you know, what is it that I have that can be really useful in this particular context.
Got you.
You know, if you can actually do that, know who you are and message it, then you can really have an impact.
Fantastic. Okay. And it's a way of communicating in a great positive, illuminative way that other people can see.
Well, I mean, and it's not something you have to try to do, because you can't actually help that. You can't actually help that. When
it's a natural
when you've got
progression.
Access to it, you will come across powerfully. And I can actually help people really get that juice.
I see. That's great. So that brings me to the next question, which is great. Can you give an example of somebody you worked with that you helped them achieve that and to get onto the board?
Yeah, no, I can. There was an HR, she was HR head, but more in name than actual fact.
Got you.
She
was a head of department for HR.
That's right. And she worked for a growing shipping company. She was very, very good. She put in infrastructure in 3 different countries, and they valued her. But her boss wanted me to come in and work with her, because every time she didn't get invited to a meeting she thought she should be at, and I mean this happens a lot for women, she would get very annoyed and march into her boss's office and tell him he'd got to sort it out.
You go, girl.
And you know, whilst her enthusiasm was laudable, he basically wanted me to stop her doing that.
You've got to tone it down a little bit.
Not just tone it down, but like start to behave in a way, in an executive way, which is about, look, I can handle this. Whatever you throw at me, I can handle it and I can make it work. And I think it was about the 5th session she came to coaching, and she was absolutely incandescent with rage, and you know, much in the way she must have been with him. And after we got over the hair tossing and shouting, you know, I said to her, look, let's go back to your intuitive personal brand. You know, what is it? And she said, well, I connect deeply with people, and I take my own line. And she was particularly annoyed about the COO, that she was actually doing half his job just to be nice, like girls do, and she was just really pissed off with him, you know. And she that's what she was so angry about. And she read this out. I said, let's go back to intuitive personal brand. She read it out. I deeply connect with people, and I take my own line. And she stopped dead, and she just said, I take my own line, don't I? And I said, Yes. And she said, I don't have to do that, do I? I don't have to put up with that. And in that moment, she stopped.
The light
doing
bulb
that.
moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the way you eloquently allowed her first to see it through her eyes.
Absolutely.
And then you ran with it, and then it had that great positive reward.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
people in the firm were saying,
yeah.
what's happened to Jane?
Wow.
What has happened?
And it's a
including
physical
her boss.
transformation
Yeah.
and verbal.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And ultimately, she became a valued member of a much smaller senior management team, where she was looked to handle all the difficult stuff. You know, she would just like make stuff work. She really transformed.
That's a brilliant client example, and you need to put that on your website actually, like a case study.
It is on my
Great.
website. It's on my website. Including some blogs actually about how to write a good CV, how to have an impact on a board.
Sure.
You know, what's the environment that boards work in. Very useful stuff on blogs.
Guys, if you're interested in reading some of Jo's blogs, please do see her contact details in the bio. Her website is there. If you're enjoying the show and maybe you have some questions for Jo about how do I get that seat on the board, I know I have it, but I'm just a few steps away, then why don't you write a question or write a comment for Jo, and she will answer the comments later after the show. So I know you've written a book. Would you like to tell me a little bit about the book you've written?
How to do it by women who've done it, wisdom from women at the top. And I interviewed a lot of successful women who, because I was just curious to know, well, how did you do it?
Yes.
And they told me their stories and their anecdotes, and you know, from that I was able to work out what are the things that hold women back. You know, as well as you know, I got loads of successful stuff, and the book is all about the successful stuff. But subsequently, I was able to use it.
Yes,
to,
for good research as well.
Absolutely brilliant research.
Oh, fantastic! And that book I'll add also in the bio. Jo, every guest I have on the show, I always ask the question: if you had a hobby or another interest, what would you do as a job? So what would you do instead of being an executive coach?
What would I do instead of being an executive coach? My goodness. Well, actually, the first thing that came to me was the best time I ever had in my whole life was being a cowboy in the Rockies.
Oh my goodness.
In Canada.
I haven't had this one yet. Okay.
I don't know.
For some reason, I can't picture you in the.
I had my hat and my bandana and my chaparrals, and I was.
Go, Jo. Definitely, empowerment for International Women's Day.
I used to ride 30 miles a day.
Oh my goodness. That's a good one, because a lot of people seem to say an actor or actress, so that one really blew me away. Fantastic. Before we end the show, I give my guests an opportunity to ask me a networking question, and this section is called actually #JustAskBella. So what's your networking question?
Well, my networking question is from my experience. Well, I know from experience that we women find it very easy to make relationships, but we don't find it so easy to be strategic with those relationships so that they really help our career. So what advice do you give to women to help them do that more effectively?
To be more strategic with their networking. Okay, so I think the first thing we need to identify is when we're looking at the word strategic and with the word networking, we have to look at it as long-term, as a long-term reward. And I want to give an example here how women can do this, and men as well. So what you need to do is look at short-term rewards and gains from networking and the long-term rewards. So what I would advise when women are networking, sometimes have maybe an alternative of a short-term goal and long-term goal. And your short-term goal is really going to be about expanding your network, really trying to find clients, obviously, and business development. Now, the long-term goal needs to be maybe if you're in a career or you do run a business and maybe you want to learn more about your industry. So you want to start networking strategically and build a network of people who are better than you. So in your case, trying to get on the board, If it was head of HR or head of accounts, then she needs to go to events, maybe speak events, and meet other speakers, other directors, other heads of departments who are on the board, and they've done it better than her or him, and find out their story. How did they do it? Why did they? And build those relationships. And it could be another flip side if you're a business and you're trying to grow, or maybe you're trying to get investment, or you want to grow a team. Instead of going to events to find clients and business developers, look to find people who have maybe made a 7-figure business or an 8-figure business, or they've grown their business to a level that you're trying to get, and they are that one step above you.
Yeah.
Find out how did they do it, what were their pain points, what were their challenges, what did they learn. And that's really what you can define as strategic networking, and building that more higher quality reward of a network, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, fantastic.
Great.
Well, guys, this show was to celebrate International Women's Day, which is on Friday, the 8th of March. So whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great day. And if you have any questions for Joe regarding how to get that seat on the board or to be a board director, please send Jo a question or comment in the contents box, and her details will be in the bio.